Hi, it's Amy. Welcome back. Somebody told me that my last video, that the audio and the video were a little out of sync. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do about that. I am not technologically savvy, and it is a monumental feat as it is for me to upload these videos. The fact that I know how to do that just kind of blows my mind. So if somebody does know how to correct the audio visual sync, please let me know. So let's get started. So what have we learned about so far? Well, we've learned that being a sex offender means that you have the same issues, some of the same issues as other people who are also sex offenders. And you might have some of the same life experiences, and you might have even made some of the very same decisions in your life. Probably you did. We've also understood that your personal problems are interrelated, that one problem leads to another problem, and that your problems are cyclic or in a cycle, and that you have to work on them as a chain of events rather than compartmentalizing them, thinking they are just isolated from each other. So you see why it's so important to watch all these videos? It's much easier to accept what I'm telling you each day if you've watched the previous videos. They're a warm-up to whatever is coming next. Because today, we're going to start to talk about your childhood. And again, I will preface this by saying, which I have said before, that it's not that I don't care what kind of crapped out childhood you had, but if you had a crapped out childhood, it is absolutely no excuse for committing a sex offense. Many people had it far worse than you did, and they didn't touch their stepdaughter or rape their date or commit any other kind of sexually abusive behavior. Got it? We are just looking at your childhood. We're looking at your whole life in order to answer some questions so you can stop this abusive behavior. Now, your problems most likely began when you were a child and during your teenage years, because those are the times in your life where you learn to start to make decisions. And those decisions eventually led you to your sexually deviant and abusive behavior. You learned how to choose this behavior. I know you don't like that. I know you don't like hearing that any of this is a choice, but it is a choice. Your sexually abusive behavior is a choice. It's why you're sitting here watching this video. That's a choice. So why the hell are you here? If you understand it's a choice, then you understand that you can make new choices. You can change. Understanding the roots of that behavior, that the roots of that behavior were planted during your childhood. So let's take a look at childhood abuse. Many people who have committed a sexual crime were abused themselves. Obviously, not all. The abuse that you may have experienced could have been sexual or physical or emotional in nature. Some of the abuse may have been pleasant. And let me give you an example of what I mean so you don't freak out. The example of a younger man being introduced to sex by an older woman. That is abuse. If you were under the age of consent, it is abuse. However, it's okay to admit that it felt pleasant, that it felt good. Both can be true. That it felt good, but it's also abuse. Your abuse that you experienced may have come in the way of neglect. What if your parents or your guardians or whoever was supposed to be protecting you, they may not have physically harmed you, but they failed to provide food, clothing, shelter, and medical care that was proper? Okay? That abuse is secondary in that respect. Maybe you had a parent or a guardian who abused drugs and alcohol, and because of that abuse, they did not provide you the basics. That is still abuse. Sexual abuse, specifically in regard to children, is defined as the involvement of dependent sexually immature children or adolescents in sexual practices that they A, do not understand or fully comprehend, 2, they are unable to consent, or 3, violate the taboos of normal family roles or laws of the community. This includes incest of all forms, underage prostitution, or any other sexual involvement with a child. If you consented to sex at age 10, if you said, yes, it's fine what you're doing to me, you really were not consenting. You're too young to consent, period. Children have no idea about the real consequences of sex, so they can't make a proper choice in being sexually involved. Even if you explain it to them, they are too young and too immature. They don't understand the consequences of pregnancy, of sexually transmitted diseases, or they don't understand that this that you're doing to them now, they may be forced to do that repeatedly. They have no true understanding, and that is why we have the laws that we do. That is why we have an age of consent, because a child cannot consent. Like I said before, if you've experienced any kind of abuse, it is not an excuse for committing a sexual offense. Your past does not dictate or control your present. You cannot blame your childhood or your parents or anybody else for your current behavior and what you've done. Blaming others is a defense mechanism. We spoke about defense mechanisms, right? So hold yourself responsible. However, when you had hard times, that is when you started to make the choices that led you to raping, molesting, or otherwise sexually abusing another human being. If you committed a sexual crime, you knew it was wrong and you knew it was illegal. You didn't do it in front of a police officer, did you? You didn't do it in front of whoever you were trying to keep it a secret from, right? So you knew what you were doing was wrong and illegal. All right. A large percentage of people are abused before adulthood. Stats say that 1 in 5 children are sexually abused before they turn 18. That's 20% of our children. It's horrifying. It's overwhelming. Being abused has many effects, as you might imagine. It leaves scars that last for years. It leaves some scars that never go away. Many victims are left with confusion and fears and problems. Many victims hide their feelings, or they don't even really understand their feelings. Common reactions: guilt, denial, hatred, confusion, shame, embarrassment, numbness. You pick. There are many emotions. When these emotions or feelings occur, often with some frequency, they become an automatic response. These are where we get our habits from. Habits are how you respond to situations. Take, for example, somebody who smokes. When they're stressed out, they seem to automatically reach for a cigarette, just as an example. They're stressed out, they reach for the cigarette. Victims of abuse have similar fixed responses to their emotions. Okay? Next time, we're going to talk about how your sexually abusive behavior now will predict your sexually abusive future. You may not want to believe it, but unless you stick with this program and learn what is going on with you right now, you're doomed to repeat your behavior. We don't want that. But you got this, right? You've got this. And you can do this. And you can make these changes so you have no more victims. Until then, like I always say, please subscribe to this channel. Forward these videos to someone who you know needs it, who you know can benefit. Go to our Facebook page. You can message me on Facebook. I will answer you. Go to our Twitter account. Get involved. And until I see you next time, be well.